And I think what I'm hearing, Kathleen, is that they would like to know a little bit more about who Meyerhold is and what we're going to be doing.
Meyerhold, Russian actor, teacher, director. Started out. I don't know Stanislavski.
Stanislavski, they know.
Yes. Started out as a student of Stanislavski. Started out with he and Nipper's Anton Chekhov's future wife were the first graduating class of the Moscow Art Theater School. Tell me if you can't hear me, okay? And those two were invited to join the company. Started out as an actor, started out trained in a mode that essentially starts from the inside out, that essentially looks to one's own experience, one's own history, how is this character like me, that kind of thought process to create a role, and started out with an acting process that essentially, to my understanding, I'm not a theater historian, was developed because of the need created by realist naturalist plays, which were sort of the new unconventional thing in Stanislavski's time and could not be played in sort of the old, much more presentational style of theater. So that was the new thing for Stanislavski. That was what Meyerhold started out studying, was extremely good at it, was invited to join the company, pretty much immediately started studying leads. He played Trepiev in the Moscow Art Theater production of Seagull, and other, major roles. Nothing very organized about this, my apologies. After a while, there's some conflicting views of why this happened, but after a while, Meyerhold started not to be so happy at the art theater, partly because he didn't get along with Nemirovich-Shevchenko, but that's sort of another conversation. But a lot because, one, he started to become interested in circus, street theater, musical theater, puppetry, all the kinds of theater that Stanislavski in My Life of Art sort of is embarrassed that he liked when he was a kid and then says he grew out of as he matured as an artist. Meyerhold came to feel that in a lot of ways that is where the real energy of the theater is. He wanted to re-theatricalize the theater. And he also became interested in movement, gesture. Meyerhold would not, could not, will never know, conform. At this point, he is a major figure, certainly in Russia, to an extent beyond. And so he gets away with this for longer than like somebody else would have, because Stalin, what is the number? He killed more of his own people than World War II did.
Yes.
He did terrible things. But Meyerhold was committed to revolution in its original early form as he understood it, and was highly critical of this regime, and kept voicing that criticism in satirical form on stage. One of his best friends, a playwright named Mayakovsky, commits suicide because he can't stand the pressure of the censure. Meyerhold keeps going to keep closing his theater and warning him, and keeps saying, I'll be good, see, I'll do a classic Russian play, and it will be, as you wish it to be. By the time he gets the classic Russian play on stage, it's more or less unrecognizable and is yet another attack on the regime. This won't go on forever. In 1939, he is arrested. His wife, Zinaida, also an actress, is murdered, brutalized and murdered in their apartment in Moscow. And he is imprisoned, tortured, in 1940, executed. Thereafter, he becomes what the Soviets called a non-person, which means they not only kill the man, they try to obliterate any evidence, any trace that this human being ever existed. So they literally like black out his name from books. You can't say the M word without being in danger of getting, schlepped off to the gulag yourself.
And if I could just, I'm sorry, because I am a theater historian. And when you think about how ephemeral theater is, right? When you think about how, if you are a theater historian, you have so little to go on, but by 1939, by 1926, whatever, you've actually got better records. You can take pictures, the printing press has been established for hundreds of years, you've got better records. So the problem that we have when you think about studying acting from the early 19th century, from the 17th century, is that there just aren't any records, and the records are hard to read. And so you've got something like Meyerhold, where theoretically you should have films of his work, you should have photographs of his work, you should have, this, that, and the other thing. And there are some that still exist, but for the most part, those are all destroyed, right? So anybody who is going to be recreating, and you all who've had me know that I talk about the great chain of masters and how that works in theater studies and in acting training, and part of it is because, you used to not have any other way to do it, but in the case of Meyerhold, there aren't, it's got to be studied from, because he was so obliterated in any record of his performance techniques, of his, there are photographs and there are some films. You can actually YouTube some examples of some things, but very, very little that from what we should have from somebody from 1939, right? The Soviet film industry is huge. There are records of these things, and they're just destroyed because that's what...
So long as you don't use the M word, you can use some of the ideas, some of the points of view. For example, when I was working in Berlin a lot in the late 90s, that was close enough to fall to the Berlin Wall that we still had actors who had been trained either in East Berlin or West Berlin. And you could walk into a rehearsal and immediately, without knowing the actor, know whether they were trained in the Eastern tradition or in the Western tradition. Actors who were trained in the Western tradition worked very much the way I had, before Meyerhold. Very much from the inside out, very emotionally based, very personal experience based. The ones from the East, immediately from the first rehearsal, they're working in terms of space.
No! Yes, Andrea! Yes!